This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gould.
Welcome to the podcast that interviews active and retired police officers about their most intense, bizarre, and sometimes humorous moments on the job. I'm Steve Gould, old ginger face, coming at you. Thank you for checking out the show. Thank you for all the binge listening that's going on. That's awesome. Thank you for finding the show. If this is your first time listening, this is the place where police officers speak freely, totally uninhibited about the experiences they have on the job, with the goal that you gain a better appreciation for what these men and women actually do day to day. And the stories are shocking and quite insane, and you won't believe it. And I really appreciate all the rating and reviewing going on. Thank you for that. There has been a few sabotage reviews, which I don't appreciate. So if you could just, we could just push those further back. If I get more 5-star reviews, I appreciate that. There's a lot of anti-police sentiment out there and people trying to, just say things that aren't true. So no thank you, I say. Thank you for the Patreon supporters. I will give them their shout out later in the show. The link is in the show notes. You can go there if you really love the show. You really want to show your support monetarily, which I appreciate. You can go there. But rest assured, the show will remain free, as always, so that the maximum amount of people can hear these stories and get that appreciation for law enforcement. So without further ado, let me give the intro to our guest today. 27 years as a Michigan conservation officer, 8 years as a certified police officer, received awards, including Officer of the Year and other accommodations, has written 2 award-winning books, which we'll talk about, and currently travels the country doing seminars about the police and game warden professions. Without further ado, let me bring on the great John Borkovich. John, thank you for coming on, man.
Hi, Steve. You're welcome. How you doing?
Man, it's good to see you, brother. And, just so the people know, poor John, we had technical difficulties the first time we tried to do this. So this is the second go around and everything seems like it's running smoothly.
Good.
Excellent. John, one interesting fact about you is you have a very interesting friend you made through being in law enforcement. Can you tell us about him?
Which one? You? You're kind of the same guy too. Which one do you want to hear about?
I think there's a famous rock star that you're friends with.
Oh, that one. Yeah. Our friend Ted Nugent latched on to me, and we have a lot in common: love for the country and love of the outdoors and love for hunting. But he kind of found me, Steve, because of my attitude, more or less my bedside manner, how I deal with the public. I do podcasts with Ted. I go to his house. I spend a lot of time with him. I was with him 2 weeks ago up in Lexington, Michigan for a couple of days. But bottom line is, when I say like my attitude toward the public, I speak to the NRA's annual convention. I speak to clubs and groups in several states. I have this quote friend, Ted Nugent, who appreciates me. His podcasts are so appreciating of what I do. So I think all that revolves around how I do my job.
Yeah.
Every one of us breaks the law at one time or another in our life. You go 1 mile over speed limit, you broke the law.
Right.
You go hunting, you forgot your license. You go hunting and you shot the wrong deer by accident. Whatever. Everybody makes mistakes. So as I'm speaking and traveling and spending time with people like Ted Nugent, what he appreciates that I realize that and can treat people accordingly, knowing that we can all make mistakes. We can all do things that were,
of course,
acted stupid, maybe uninformed of the law, whatever. So a lot of that comes from my compassion for people, Steve, that are like people. Well, no, some people I don't like, but a lot of people are good people. It's hard to explain it, but officers cannot get jaded and say that everybody's bad.
Absolutely.
Especially if they go hunting and fishing. We cannot look at them as the enemy. on the other side, the other team. So once you realize that most of these hunters and fishermen and people in the public are pretty good, then it's easier to have this compassion.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you're referring to discretion there, which is something that a lot of younger cops, game wardens, they're kind of it's a learning process for discretion. They might be a little bit more uptight, a little bit feeling like they don't want to get in trouble, they want to make sure they do their job, but we're given that discretion for a reason because the law is so nuanced, and police officers have a lot of responsibility when you encounter somebody. You really need to gauge the motive behind what this person's doing and their education level to the law. So if you apply the law too forcefully, you could ruin that person's perception of law enforcement for their life, right?
Exactly. Well, and that's exactly what this is about, how I speak in the clubs and the groups and the podcast, Steve. You can either turn that contact into a positive experience and make a friend, let's say, or make a contact in a positive way for life, or you can turn them against law enforcement just by as your demeanor goes and how you treat them. So we can use that. They have these common terms, community policing, and all these fancy words. You and I, in our career, have done all this for years. We know how to treat the public. We
Right.
we're not keeping people when they're down. We're not doing the racist thing. We're not writing cheap tickets. All that builds into who we are and how we treat the public. So the more that we can spread the word, like what you're doing right here, that we're pretty good people. We like
Yeah.
to look at the situation and use discretion and make a good decision what to do each contact. You shouldn't have to call your sergeant. Hey, Sarge, should I give this guy a ticket? Hey, Sarge, is this a bad guy
Right.
or not? You should know that in your gut. You should realize who you're dealing with. Maybe just some poor, uneducated person. Maybe some young kid. Maybe some old guy.
Right.
Like there's a lot of room to treat people good when it comes to those type of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I had an instructor in police academy that said, he was talking about citations, and he said they're really for the people who don't get it. And believe me, when you get into training, you'll realize who those people are. You'll
And
realize
you see,
where someone who willfully disobeys and has no remorse for laws, they stand out. You're gonna know who just isn't playing ball with you.
you just used big word, willfully. Willfully goes with purposefully, goes with intentionally. Um, those words are so much different than an accident. Those words are so much different than someone not paying attention. Those words are so much different than someone who's not educated. So all this, and I don't want to get you too sidetracked, Steve, but all that um, compassion for the public and knowing how to treat the public makes our job much easier. It's not a daily struggle when you treat the public well because they reciprocate and give the respect back to us.
Absolutely.
Um,
And so people know too, in the law enforcement world, I've noticed that the game wardens that I know, there's kind of there's a stigma on game wardens that they're extra hard, that they're real hard asses. And I
yep.
think what I gleaned from talking with them is that I think from a operational standpoint, from the admin standpoint, is there's not a lot of game wardens out there. They cover a lot of space, and the chances of running into somebody breaking a game law is small for a hunter or fisherman, unless it's like an opening day or something. So I think the point of view is when you do catch somebody, hammer down. Like that seems to be like a
Right.
very layman's interpretation on my part of like what young game wardens might be told. Like, hey, you got to make it count when you catch somebody because you're not having a lot of you're not catching a lot of people doing you can't be everywhere at once. You're not like it's not like a normal police force. It's a really spread out and dispersed police force. Does that seem like something you've heard?
Oh, that's gospel. Because of that, if once you realize that you are spread out, once you realize that you don't want to give everybody a ticket you run into, that grows into how I worked my whole career. Having compassion for the public, What it makes you work harder to find the bad guys is what I'm saying.
Right.
So, and you're not bogged down, tied up with little Johnny who forgot his hunting license, or Billy over here that, had a fish a little bit too short. If you're not tied up with the minor violations, you can search out the big violations. The big violations, then there's no question. They're doing something wrong. They knew they're doing something wrong, and it switches from compassion to passion at that point. You have to have a passion to catch the bad guys. Let everything go. Be a nice guy. I was told several times in my career, John, you give too many warnings. And I take offense to that. You can't give too many warnings. At the same time, I'm being told to give too many warnings. Guess what else I'm being told? Wow, you make so many big cases. How do you make those monumental cases, John? You dummy, you don't get it? If you give too many warnings and if you work hard, yes, you will make good cases if you have this passion to protect the resources and protect the public. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And know what I really, really do like about the game laws I don't know if it transfers over to where you were, but in Massachusetts, there you can arrest for almost anything when it comes to environmental law, which is great for when you get like a real mouthy jerk.
Yeah.
And like, you're like, oh yeah, no life jacket. We're going to jail now because you are a jerk. That's the flip side of it. I always was kind of jealous of that. I think for us, we can enforce waterways stuff if either you're a harbor master or you are a police officer assigned to a marine unit. But police officers in Mass can do freshwater fishing, not saltwater. Only the game wardens can do that.
Really?
I think because it's more technical. Massachusetts is the land of like really diluted and overcomplicated law, and when law enforcement overlaps, there's no like peace officer commission in Massachusetts. It's like the wardens do this, troopers do this, town guys do this. It can be a little bit annoying. But I wanted to comment on Ted Nugent. I'm so happy that you have an inroad with him and you got to personally know a cop, because I like him personally. Like, he's got what a great personality. He's like canned dynamite. I love seeing him when they put him on the news. I'm always like, why? They know what he's going to do. He's going to shred them in some way. But he does have that libertarian bend to him where he has said things before that I heard that I was like, ooh, like it seems like he hates cops, but because he doesn't qualify when he talks. He doesn't say I hate bad cops. He'll just say, F law enforcement. You know what I mean? I know what he means because I know him a little bit from watching him in his interactions. He doesn't mean all cops, but he is pretty aggressive when it comes to bad cops.
Well, maybe somewhat justified,
Yeah.
Again, going back to what we talked about 10 minutes ago, when you leave a bad impression on somebody as a game warden or a police officer, they don't forget it. So Ted has had a couple of experiences where the officers have been a little too overzealous on him. So what interesting, you said how he comes across as hating all cops. At his concert a couple of weeks ago, I was backstage and we were talking and everything, and things went really well. He signed in 1911.
Nice.
Really kind of cool. Right?
He's the man. He's great.
He is. But when we finished that in the concert, he says, "Is there anybody that works the DNR in this concert? You got to leave now. I hate you." Right at me. And he looks right at me. And I know what he was saying. He's trying to say, be more kind and gentle to the public and give more warnings. That's his way of saying that.
Right.
That's his way of saying, use more discretion. So he's a character.
You know what? In the day and age of everybody having to qualify what they're about to say, which annoys the piss out of me, it's refreshing to know, all right, he said that, but let's get to know him a little bit and see what's behind that. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't a literal comment, but he's a rocker, man. He puts it out there.
He has a reason for what he says. He has some background.
Right.
And he's extremely intelligent.
Oh, yeah.
If it wasn't a family show, I would go into exactly some of the things he says at the concert to make you laugh to get tears in your eyes.
Yeah.
He's well-meaning in what he does, and he delivers it exceptionally well. We need guys like that out there. But
Yeah, absolutely.
he likes my passion. On the other hand, he likes me protecting what he loves so much. So he likes how I have this aggressiveness to catch the real bad guys. And he tells me that quite often. He appreciates both ends of the spectrum that I seem to be working on here.
Yeah, you can tell. That's awesome. John, let's get into it. Can you tell us about your first hot call you responded to, the first call that ever got your adrenaline going?
You want to hear that before I tell you about getting hit by lightning? Or you want me to tell you about
No, let's hear the lightning first.
Real fast. This is 3 hours if we don't watch it. But when I talk about compassion for the public and giving warnings, then I talk about having the intestinal fortitude to kick butt and work aggressive and work hard. Sometimes we work a little too aggressive. Sometimes we get ourselves in bad situations because we have this passion to protect. All cops do this. Once in a while we find ourselves, why am I doing this? Why am I fighting 3 guys at once? Why am I driving too fast? Okay. 2 really, really quick stories. The one, I see 2 guys riding down the dirt road with the old refrigerator and stove in the back of their ratty pickup truck. And they go into the state game area, the state-owned land, and they back up into a little turnaround. So you know what they're going to do. They're going to dump it out in the woods. Like they dump tires and
I hate that.
in our woods, okay?
Yeah.
So I see them doing this from a distance, but it's pouring rain out. I can't just drive up with my patrol truck, so I have to walk. So I hide my truck and I walk up on these guys, and it's pouring rain, and it's thunder, and it's lightning. You remember you were taught how long it is between thunder and lightning? You count the seconds, tells you how far away it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so I count 3 seconds. Thunder, lightning, 3 seconds. Pretty soon it's 2 seconds. Pretty soon it's 1 second, and I'm standing there like an idiot, using my passion to protect our land. Pretty soon, Steve, there was this huge crash. A lightning bolt came down and hit an oak tree. It traveled from the oak tree into my titanium plate and my bulletproof vest. It was like, boom, hit me right in the chest.
Wow.
I said, wow, that's kind of cool.
Did it hurt?
Yeah. It's like I got just drilled in the chest. So I'm like, well, I looked down, there's no blood. Still got my fingers and my nose, so I must be all right. I just kept working. About 5-6 hours later, I wised up and I went to the hospital, and they panicked. You know, they hooked me up to these machines and made sure my heart wasn't going.
Yeah, you don't have arrhythmia or something.
Exactly. And I was all right. Well, that night they sent me home. They said, "Oh, you're good, man. That's crazy. Your chest is red, but other than that, you're fine." I go home. When I get my uniform off, I got a burn mark right in my thigh, like the size of your little finger, right? Just a little tiny red and purple burn. So, no big deal. A couple months later, I get blood clots in the same leg.
Oh.
The burn mark was the lightning exiting my femoral artery. I'm like, so I go to the hospital. They admit me. They stay in there for 8-10 days. And you're going to die. You know, you're going to live. You're going to die. Well, you got a hole through your femoral artery. Your femoral artery's got a big blowhole right through it from the lightning. I said, oh, okay. So what?
Patch me up.
Just patch me up. I want to go to work and catch bad guys. That's exactly what happened. I ended up getting out of the hospital. They had me on blood thinners, and I just took myself off all that. Just went back to work. The first time I had a foot chase, it felt so good to still run people down like a dog. And right now, it's fine. You know, I'm alive. But those are the things that happen in police work while we're out trying to do our job. That's just one little crazy thing that happened. It was kind of neat in a way.
That's crazy, man. I'm a hypochondriac. I would have been in the hospital. I've been like, no, I'm not leaving till I know for sure I'm better.
I'm like, get out of there. It was touch and go for a bit, and I'm not doing this. I'm
yeah, I was going to ask about the exit wound because when I was a kid, I was 13. I was in the basement on Cape Cod of my parents' house. Horrible lightning storm going on, and I went down to the washer and dryer to switch stuff over. And I went to touch the dryer, and as I touched it, lightning struck outside, and a blue ball went whoop, right into the tip of my finger. and I jumped and I fell on my back. And my dad heard me shout, so lightning had struck our house or near our house, or I don't know how it worked. Maybe it hit a tree and it came through the roots. But my dad came down and he goes, I just heard you scream and I came down, you were lying on your back. And that's the first thing he did is he took my shoes off because he wanted to see if it went down, if there was an exit wound. But that was really, that lightning that I got kind of struck by was like, I think diluted enough where my legs were a little bit sore, but that was it. That it was, but it scared the hell out of me.
It's intense. How is it now when you're in a lightning storm? Do you ever remember that incident? Do you ever think back to that?
Oh yeah, I think about it all the time. Yeah.
I hate to be that way, but once in a while I go, oh no, not again. That's just a thing that happens when we have this passion to protect. We put ourselves in these dangerous predicaments. Another one, real fast, and then I don't want to hold you all day, but
no, not at all.
You know what deer shining is? Guys go out the spotlight, and they
sure.
Typically immobilize the deer. The deer kind of gets paralyzed, staring in this bright light, and they shoot. Yep. It's totally illegal in every state. Okay. Well, one night I'm working on deer shiners, and it's a drizzly, dark October night, and 2-3 miles east of me, I see a spotlight. It bounces across the horizon. There's a big enough spotlight. Anyway, I zoom in on it, and I saw we got to get over there and catch these guys. But what I neglected to tell you, I drive without lights on at night sometimes. Again, we do dumb things to facilitate caring for nature and the environment and other people. So I'm driving northbound, and I'm only going 40 or 50 miles an hour with no lights on. And I see the spotlight again. So that pumps me up more, makes me do more dumb things. So I start driving faster and faster because I want to catch these guys, right? Well, the only way I knew I was on the road, Steve, it was really dark night. Some nights you got moonlight. There was no moonlight. It was cloudy and drizzling. If I was leaning, I was too far to the left, so I'd have to come back to the right a little. And if I was leaning the other way, I'd have to come back to center myself on this road. Again, my zeal to catch these guys was more powerful than my common sense.
Right.
As I am feeling the road, I saw something right ahead of me. And most people think, well, was it a deer? I saw a vehicle maybe 30 or 50 feet ahead of me, driving right at me with no lights on. Some other idiot was driving on the same road with no lights on and the same time that I was.
What are the chances?
What's the chances? All I said, I'm dead. Don't even have time to hit the brakes. All I did is, it was a Z71 Chevy pickup. All I did is crank the wheel as hard as I can, and I crashed through a ditch and into a cut cornfield, and I spun around a couple hundred times, or a couple times, I don't know. But I'm in this cornfield with my lights off, and I again did this thing. I'm kind of like, I'm not even dead. I just crashed. Steve, the truck was upright. I turned the lights on and drove right back onto the road after crashing. So I went home. No, I didn't go home. I said I wanted to catch up to who almost killed me. I do a U-turn on the road. I head southbound. It's a pickup truck, old dirty truck. I pull up behind and hit the flashers. I wanted to hurt him when I walked up there. You can understand that. Without my driving ability, I'm dead and they're dead, right? So I walk up. What's the matter with you? I'm screaming and yelling at him. It's two old drunk guys. And I wanted to pistol whip them. And no body cams or anything. I should have.
Now, were they on your side of the road, I'm assuming?
They're right in the middle of the road.
Okay.
They were with no lights on. It's a gravel road. There's only I'm on the crown of the road feeling my way, and they're in the middle of the road coming right at me. And I'm screaming and yelling, what's wrong with you? Get out of here. I get out of your truck. I haul them out, and they're trashed. And I handcuffed the driver after I didn't beat him. I thought about it. You know what he told me? They had an electrical problem in their vehicle. And when they got out of the bar, they had no lights. So they decided to take the back roads and drive as fast as they can so they don't see the police.
Good plan.
So again, those are just little quick stories of predicaments we get ourselves in because of our want to do a good job, that passion that we talked about. But
Yeah.
sorry, I had to put those in for you.
No, those are great. Yeah, I love how most game wardens I know try to avoid anything like that because they want to concentrate on environmental law. And sometimes you just can't help it. They run into you, almost literally.
Oh, yeah, just about literally.
All right, brother, you want to tell us about the first hot call?
The first hot one, Steve, was probably like very, very new on the job. I was on my own for a few months, let's say. And deer season, the end of the opening day of deer season, it's dark now, and I pull up to the vehicle that I had seen earlier. And this guy standing there squares off with me with a 12 gauge scope shotgun. Just a momentary, just like almost a, here I am. And in one motion, he threw his gun in the front seat, got in and threw the car and drive and threw gravel over me and took off. It's like, wow, this is fun. So the new officer is now in a high-speed chase, and I'm calling it out. It was you and I have talked a little bit about high-speed chases. They're dangerous. They're terrible when things go south.
Especially on gravel.
Oh, but people die. Innocent people die.
Yeah.
People running from the police go right through a red light and kill family. So they're terrible, but they're fun. All of us know
Correct.
that's fun. They're extremely exhilarating and extremely intense, and we look forward to them. So here I'm in a high-speed chase as a new officer, and I'm calling it out. Now, he's eastbound. Now he's 100. Okay, he's turning north. Oh no, he turned south. He just hit a tree head on, and I'm like, oh, this is fun. The driver's door opens, and the bleeding fool gets out and takes off running. Then the new officer gets a foot chase, which is extremely fun. Foot chases and hand-to-hand combat's part of the fun that we like. Anyway, I ended up chasing him down and tackling him, and I guess it was a good way to break in. To have He had an illegal doe in the trunk of his car. His gun was still loaded. I had the felony flee and elude. I had the R&O, resist obstruct, but it's a fun way to kind of include all that on one call.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a lot. Especially wardens that are, you're almost always alone unless you're doing some kind of operation or some mission you guys are doing together.
Right.
I just don't, I have a lot of respect for the ones that just, you catch them red-handed, it's over. You know what I mean? It's like, he's never going to get away. You got the truck, you got the plate, you've seen him, you've seen his face. It's like just a sheer moment of panic. You must think somehow I'm going to get out of this.
Yeah, it's a lapse of judgment, just a momentary lapse where they just think they can beat us, but they usually don't.
Yeah, it's a fight or flight. Luckily, he chose flight and didn't turn that 12 gauge on you.
I've had it both. I've had fight and flight all in the same case, and it's very interesting. Most people don't do both. Most people, you want to fight with you, and other people just want to run and get away from you. This one character wanted both, and he got both.
Yeah, and the young Warden Borkovich got his first taste of a nice adrenaline dump.
I'm kind of liking this thing right about now.
John, can you tell us a strange or bizarre thing you dealt with on the job?
Very often in police work, we deal with some strange things. One in particular, I had a house where they were devil worshippers, and when I got into their basement, they had black lights on all over. The window wells are all covered with black paint. All the other lights were off. They had animals hanging on monofilament fishing line above their pillows, above their beds, skulls and lips and feet and feathers and the whole carcass hanging all over in this basement. And they were a cult, but they were actually pretty nice to talk to. They gave me a consent search. They were, believe it or not, I can't call them idiots. I just call them really weird.
Yeah.
But they were fairly polite and cooperative with me. But Steve, as I'm walking through this house, this basement of this house, I'm tabulating violations. You can't have an eagle. You can't have an owl. You can't have um, ducks out of season. Let's say what they had all these violations, and all of a sudden at the far end of the basement, there's a stand with a bunch of candles burning. On that stand is a human skull, a literal human skull sitting on a little temple.
Ugh.
And incense burning, candles burning, that's what they worshiped. So they did a grave digging thing and pulled out a skull and put it in their basement. So I probably call that a strange case.
Yeah, that would make the hair stand up on my neck. I'd be praying in my head the whole time.
Well,
Lord,
believe it or
protect
not,
me.
yeah, I don't want my head on that temple. No.
Like the Predator. This
Oh
game
man,
warden's
I
got a
know.
nice bone structure.
Look at his head. He'd make a nice skull for our temple, but I think that qualifies as a strange case.
Yeah, it is interesting too. The rise of witchcraft in our country, the normalization of it. There's all different kinds of witchcraft going on and satanic stuff. It really disturbs me. I had a call where there was a woman in a bad way. I won't get into it, but I had the opportunity to give her a copy of the New Testament. And, I always question on duty what's okay. You know what I mean? Because you're in uniform. You don't want to be political or religious. You just want to be the face of the law and, whatever. But at our station, we have a area for people in crisis, and the Gideons deliver Bibles.
Oh,
And the agency I work for allows them to be there. So to me, that's saying it's okay for me to talk about it if we're going to have this. We're going to have the holy book in our station. So, yeah, she was really into that stuff, and I kind of had a little rapport with her, and I tried to give it to her, and she said, things aren't that bad yet.
wow.
That's what she said. And I felt like saying they are. I just don't think you realize it.
Yeah, you don't know it yet. Exactly. That's very interesting. You've prayed on the side of the road with someone in a fatal car accident right before they die. All of us have. We've been to these calls. You're supposed to do that? Probably not. Is
Right.
it the right thing to do? Yes, it is. So just like you giving the Bible to this lady, if you get in trouble or fired for that, Steve, I'm sorry.
Consider it a blessing.
You were trying. You were trying to help a poor soul in trouble.
Right.
So if
Absolutely.
someone's looking right at you there after an accident or a bad situation. They say, "I don't want to die." I'm looking at them like, "Oh, you're gonna die." Let
Right.
me try to help. Do you believe in God? Blah blah. So what you like you said, to be a blessing to get fired for doing the right thing.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. I'm figured. You know what? I'll now I've said it on a podcast, so I guess.
Yeah, we put it on the air now that we're that kind of guy, Steve. That
Yeah. Isn't it
we're not.
terrible, John? It's like things are so bad now that it's like you really say stuff like that, and then you think like, oh, what if some citizens hear that I'm a Christian? You know what I mean? It's like, God forbid that thought. That's like it's gross that your mind even goes there, but that's
You
kind of the way
shouldn't.
it is.
You shouldn't have that fleeting thought. Oh, I wonder if someone would be mad that I said something about the Bible.
Right.
Is it okay that we prayed for a person dying? Someone will take offense, but I don't really care. I
Yeah.
don't think you care either. We know
No.
what's right.
Yeah. You got to do it. You got to follow your conscience. We're being led by the Spirit, so you know, got to do it. Um,
Yep.
yeah, that was a really bizarre call, John. I wanted to ask you about you guys share some space with Canada.
Yeah.
How did you have much interaction with the Canadian wardens, or was there a real what was the relationship like, and was it super strict? Like if a law enforcement officer drifts on a lake or in the woods crosses a Canadian border, what do they tell you about that? What are the rules for that?
I don't want to disparage another law enforcement agency, but the Canadian law enforcement and game wardens, they actually scare me. They don't have the latitude to do what Steve Gold would do or John Borkovich. They are literally running around. Yes, sir. Okay. And they're scared to, the ones that I've met, they're scared to death of the man. They're scared to death of
The
the
bosses.
government, the bosses. Um, you get back to the actual border that you asked, but I went across to Canada after a little work at the Blue Water Bridge. I go to Canada, I had to leave my sidearm behind and my shotgun at the time on the US side. You can't have handguns in Canada. So I'm in full uniform, driving a marked police car. I see a bunch of flashers and cars ahead of me. It's a sobriety check lane. Little guy walks up to me. Hey, I need your driver's license, proof of insurance, registration. Are you drunk today? I'm going, are you stupid today?
Oh my
I'm in
gosh.
the police car. I've already been demeaned or demoralized by leaving my sidearm behind. Now you're checking to see if I'm drunk. Well, we check everybody over here. I said, well, go get your sergeant because I think you don't know what you're doing. That mentality, I hope we never get to that in America where the public and the police lose their rights. And we're kind of drifting that way, and that's a whole nother podcast for you and I to do. That we're
Yeah.
losing some basic rights and some constitutional rights. But I just had to throw that in. I tell some of the Canadian officers, yeah, I had to chase it. I got into the chase. I made my gun at him. I said, get your hands up. And they said, you can pull your gun out of your holster? So that's what it's for. Oh no, we can't pull that gun out of our holster until we get shot or something. So I really, when I say, and I know some of the officers, I'm not trying to belittle them, but it's a different mentality, and, and it's only a mile from where I'm sitting right now.
Oh
Canada's
wow.
just, it could be 2 miles across the lake, but it's right there. So we do sometimes run into Canadian citizens on our side and vice versa. You have to have some of that discretion. You can't treat them like criminals. I'm not sure we care about borders anymore anyway, do we? I'm not so sure that I'm not so sure that
Right.
we care who comes and goes into our country as it goes in the last few years anyway, Steve. But it's a little tough. You have to take bond money from people from another country. It's a real pain, but
Yeah.
it's there's like a almost like a grace period on the lake called international water. So the U.S. If you're on talking about the water, U.S. waters end here and Canadian waters end over there. There's international water in the middle. That's what I
Oh,
call the
okay.
grace
So if
period.
you
Some
drift into that fishing, then you're not necessarily going to get cuffed and
right
stuffed.
until you actually get into Canadian waters, and then you could get jammed up a little bit.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, it's very well, they have a very big influence from Europe there. They're very European in a lot of the things they do, and the socialist programs they run, and like you said, it's just different. Like I used to walk our dogs when we lived on the Cape, and more than a few times at the same time we were there, and this German couple would walk with us, and they had a dog, and we'd walk, and his son was a police officer in Germany, and he said that basically his son was told you really don't can't even shoot somebody if they have a knife. Really, they said you pretty much that gun comes out if you've been shot at, which I don't know why you would even take a job like that where it's like you can't even they value the crook over your life. You're going to spend in Germany, they're going to make you go to police college for 4 years and then come out and then blow all that investment because some psycho has to shoot at you first. It seems crazy. And then another time I was camping, John, in Nova Scotia, and this guy was a lot. I mean, number one, Canadians are great people. They're so kind, and they really are pro-America too. They wish they had the Constitution. Basically, most of the normal people. And he was telling me, he goes, "You don't know how bad it is." He said, in Canada, the governors or the lieutenant governors of each province, I'm probably misquoting him, something like this. Lieutenant governors, I think, of each province are still appointed by the Queen of England.
Wow.
And I was like, is that true? He's like, yeah, England is involved with appointing our seconds in command. And that blew my mind because they tell you all day long the Queen does nothing. The Crown is impotent. Not true.
Wow. That's where a lot of the social programs and social beliefs are coming from then.
Oh, yeah. I guarantee it. So, I love you, Canadians. I broke down in Truro, Nova Scotia. The gray water holding tank fell out of our camper and it went all over the road and was in front of this little mom and pop shop. And didn't those guys, all the mechanics, come out and fix my camper for free so that me and my family could keep marching to Halifax? I mean, and they were like, we're happy to do it. One guy used ratcheting straps he had in his pickup truck that he bought at Walmart, which was like an hour and a half away. So he had them for himself for his house. He used 2 of them to help me. And he said, well, I'd like to think the same thing would happen in America for us. And I was like, depends where you are, but I'd like to think that too.
You know what you said is very important, though. Canadian people as a whole love us. They hunt, they fish, they go outdoors. They're country people. I'm afraid we can get back into the political arena again, but some of the big cities in Canada might be a little different. But most people in Canada are just great people.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. John, can you tell us about the most intense or terrifying call you went on? I realize there might be a lot to pick from.
Actually, there is. When you have a lot of passion, you're always into something crazy. That's what's fun, Steve. I can tell you one I had with 6 illegal aliens, or they're immigrants trying to come to our country illegally. Well, however you want to call them.
Right.
They're called illegal aliens. But I once was driving deer season, and I stop once in a while and just listen for shots and vehicles, and I hear automatic rifle fire. I'm like, oh, sweet.
Whoa.
You can't have automatic rifles. Yeah, this is good. I figure it's 3 miles, a little bit southwest. I start heading over there. Just then my phone rings, my cell phone. And it's a local hunter. And he said, John, this foreign guy just came at me and he had an AK-47 and he's trespassing. He's dressed in full camo and he threatened me. He said he's going to shoot me. I'm going, wow, where you at? Same place where the automatic are coming from. So I'm like, oh, this is fun. I get over to that area and it's about, it's a 6 square mile area with no homes, but I narrowed it into a 1 square mile area. I park my patrol truck and I go out and I'm trying to pinpoint where this is coming from, where these bad guys are. I walk up on a white Ford pickup truck, blood all over it, second chance bulletproof vest inside the truck. And I'm like, wow. I run the plate. Driver's got felony warrants, illegals, blah, blah, blah. So all of a sudden I get all these calls. Hey, we're on the way. We're backing up. All these sheriff units, state police, DNR, Border Patrol, they're all coming. And I said, no. I'm in a very precarious position. I'm in the middle of the woods. There's woodlots, little cornfields, woodlots, little fence rows. I'm in a very dangerous spot. I'm in the middle of nowhere with this white truck. There's still gunshots going all around me. There's 6 gun cases in the truck. So I know there's 6 guys out here that are trespassing, doing a lot of other things wrong if they have body armor on.
Yeah.
So, Steve, I'd made the maybe stupid decision to hold the backup off. And I did it for a reason. From working alone, as you said earlier, so many times, but also from knowing that exact area. I'd walked in every bit of that property before. I knew where the little low spots were. I knew where the fence rows were. I knew where the trees were at. I said, have the backup stage and give me a perimeter because it's almost dark. I don't want these guys to get out. Please, just don't rush in here. You're going to get shot. If you come in here with a bunch of police cars, someone could get shot.
We're trying to do a little recog here, not bring the cavalry in yet.
And it was stupid, but it was fun.
Yeah. I would have been cool with like 10 or 12 other guys. I'm like, come on, let's go.
If I had you and 10 other guys, we could go in there and clean house. But it was meant to be that I just went, the newspaper wrote that I went Rambo style. I didn't really do that. I went in there and I'm walking, looking for these guys, Steve, and bang, right in front of me, the shot. And 20, 30 yards away from me, laying prone, facing away from me, is 2 of these idiots in full camo. One of the rifles is on a bipod. And I just, wow, this is fun. So I sneak up on them and jumped on them, and we fought for a little bit, and I put them in handcuffs. So I got 2. I know there's 4 more. Got these 2 in custody, and they're just going off in some other language. And I say, shut up. You know, as I'm dealing with them, I look up and there's 3 more carrying rifles walking right at me. They're 150, 200 yards away.
Ugh.
They're coming to my location. And I'm going, oh, no. So you and I talk about God quite often and having faith. Well,
Sure.
God took care of me real good right here because I was a cut cornfield here and some brush over here and a cut cornfield over here. The only tree within 100 yards of me was right next to me. It was a shagbark hickory that big around.
Planted 100 years ago for you.
900 years ago, someone took care of me, Steve.
Yeah.
I got behind the shagbark hickory. Now, these idiots are yelling in some other language for those idiots. And I start saying, I let them get about, 50, 75 yards away. And I had my Springfield 308. And I only had 20 rounds. So I would have had 15 rounds left. I might give them each one if I had to. But I get behind this tree and I say, drop your rifles. There's no response. Drop your, and I'm screaming. They start screaming and coming at me. I say, shut up. You get shot first. You get shot. And it was
Damn.
probably intense. When you ask if it was an intense situation, it was pretty intense.
Yeah.
They won't drop their rifles. And I'm like, at a certain point, after yelling so much, they threw them down.
Thank
Now
goodness.
Oh, yeah. So now I have them walking toward me, and I got all 5 right in front of me. And I wrote in the one book, for a split second, I was like, this is fun. I got them all. They're right there. And it was interesting. When I made the radio call to send backup, they came from everywhere. There were 20 police cars, Border Patrol. And it was fun. They swooped in. These guys had body armor on deer hunting. That's another violation. Wearing body armor during the commission of a crime. Because their crime was sneaking in illegally. Remember the fruit of the poisonous tree? We talk about that police work.
Sure.
Different than the idiots. You did something wrong. You broke into our country to begin with. I believe everything you did thereafter is wrong. But on top of that, Steve, they trespassed. They threatened legal hunters. They didn't buy hunting licenses. They didn't have hunter orange on them. They had rifles they shouldn't have had. I had 48 charges on these guys. And as I'm not gloating, but smiling over my prize, some dude walks up from behind us. He was foreign. He had a license. He had an orange hat on. He did almost everything right. So he got treated well. He was a nice guy. The others, they're just criminals through and through.
John, that's incredible. What was the deal with them? Did they really think, we can go into the woods with an automatic weapon and they were just going to slay deer? Was that the plan?
I got to be a little bit careful here, but if you have the mindset that I'm going to sneak into where I don't belong to begin with, maybe your mindset would also be, I'll go kill whatever I want. I'll go wherever I want. I won't abide by the hunting laws. So maybe there's a correlation there. Maybe they shouldn't have bothered to start with.
I wonder if, because you know how America's reputation for firearms goes far and wide throughout the world. I wonder if they thought, okay, we want to do this. We're going to go out there and kill whatever we want. But if we run into an American, they'll probably shoot us. So we should wear body armor.
Possibly. Or if the police get a hold of us, we'll just kill them. We'll kill them out in the middle of the woods. So I have no idea why they were doing so much wrong, Steve, but it was kind of fun.
Damn, man. Yeah, I would have been.
I was asked, did you get a promotion? I said, nope. Did you get a pay raise? No. Probably got scrutinized for not waiting for backup. But you know what? Sometimes you have to do what you have to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do obviously tactical training teaches us you never do that by yourself. But sometimes you have to do it.
That's crazy, man. When you were working for wardens, Did you ever were you ever involved in sneaky stuff, like undercover stuff, like posing as hunters or anything like that?
Yes, Brother Bruce did some undercover work for a
Yeah.
few years. I never did the official undercover work. I always had to do it on my own. I'd literally put camouflage jumpsuit over my uniform and creep around and sneak up on people.
Yeah.
And that gets intense. That gets
Yeah.
very, when you're literally talking to the enemy and doesn't
Yeah.
know it.
They have no idea you're a warden.
Very dangerous. Very
Yeah.
dangerous. When I could tell you so many cases um, where that almost went bad. But it's like, remember the old Miami Vice movies, always undercover, always in gunfights and
Yeah.
catching the
Yeah.
bad guy. It's very dangerous, but you can accomplish some things. So my undercover work was all, I suppose, nowadays you get in trouble if you didn't get permission to cover your uniform. But during the course of my career, I did what was right. If I
Yeah.
had to catch something, I'd wear camouflage.
You had some
I
freedom.
had one guy. Well, one guy was poaching, and he had a brand new 870 shotgun with slugs. And after I tackled him, I had him on the ground, Steve, and I had a face mask on and full camouflage, pretend like I was a hunter. And I had him holding him down, and I said, "Oh, I suppose you better tell you who I am." He said, I think I know who you are, John." So even though I was in camo, even though I was hiding, he knew who I was.
Everybody knows the local game warden. That's funny.
Yeah,
I asked you about that because a friend of mine was, well, not a friend, it was just a guy who told me the story, but he was fishing on the Cape and he fished next to this guy for like hours, you know? And the guy ended up walking over to him after a couple hours and introduced himself, checked his catch, you know, showed him the badge. And he goes, I was talking with this guy for hours. He's a great guy. He's a game warden. He was just waiting for him to catch something so he could, you know what I mean? But I always thought, man, what a good job, you know, on Cape Cod, you're striper fishing. Yeah, I mean, I know that's not what it's all about, but there are certain instances where on Cape Cod they do go undercover and they get to do some fishing themselves, you know?
Oh, and hunting, same thing. You go hunting with a bad guy, and yeah, as I said, it can get very dangerous though when you're posing as another bad guy.
Oh,
I had
yeah.
my dad. I had my dad with me one day, Steve, and he was in plain clothes, so he had a jacket over his bulletproof vest. And I see we drive by a little creek in the fall, and this guy's shooting in the river with a 1022 Ruger, bam, 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 bam in the water. So I said, "Oh, geez, they're shooting salmon. There's salmon in that creek. Quick, Dad, get out here, go down there and see what you can see exactly what they're doing." So I hide my truck and I sit back and I'm watching them. Right, I see one of these guys talking to my dad, and he goes, I didn't know what he said, but he said, "You're not the DNR, are you?" And they grabbed his vest. They
Oh,
said, "When the DNR comes, we're going to kill him." Then they reached out and they touched his vest. And I don't know what they're saying. I see this going on. So I'm, oh, no way. So I'm running at them. My dad tried to do the right thing. They threw their gun in the car. Two guys get in. My dad tried to take the keys out.
oh my
And when
gosh.
they started dragging them backwards toward me.
Oh my gosh.
You have to see your own dad being dragged and going to die in front of you. So
Wow.
that didn't work out very good for these guys.
Yeah, I'm
The
sure.
one still had the one still had a 16-ounce Budweiser in his hand on the steering wheel, and I hit him so hard beer went everywhere. I tried to break every bone in his body, but we won on that one. But again, plainclothes work, undercover work can be very dangerous.
You're like, Dad, I told you, you are not, in fact, a game warden in this situation.
You're doing a really. He was actually a deputy game warden. We have what's called a volunteer conservation officer program for
Oh, really?
years. Oh yeah, they have to go through training, and that way he could ride with all three of his sons who were game wardens. It was really fun. Take your own dad out, but that one time, yeah, that wasn't the best situation. They picked
Wow.
the wrong guy to do it, you know.
Yeah, I would say. That's incredible. So, is that a record in Michigan? Three brothers all on the force at the same time
Yeah, I
for
think
game
it's a
wardens?
record in the whole country, in the whole nation. There's never been three game wardens serve at the same time.
You guys must have it in your blood because if it's like anywhere else, becoming a game warden is not an easy application process. And there's not a lot of spots.
No, my poor older brother, Mike, he's the sheriff now up by Traverse City. He's got a beautiful job. He's well liked. He ran for sheriff, second term, doing everything right. The deputies love him. But my brother tried for 7 years to get hired as a game warden.
Yeah.
That's a long time to put your life on hold. And he went through the affirmative action days. He went through all the hiring issues, and he finally made it. But then I got in, and then Brother Bruce got in. So all three of us were able to get the job.
That's really cool. Yeah, I when I was a younger man, I worked for Department of Natural Resources for a town on Cape Cod, and we were sworn as police and had firearms and badges, and it was the Natural Resource Department. We did like harbor master, we did some ATV patrols, we did boats patrols in the summer. It was kind of like local game wardens, it's like it's a pretty unique job for Massachusetts, where it only exists really on Cape Cod because all of the natural resources. So it was a great job for a 22-year-old kid. And I thought, and we worked with the state guys. They come out with boats with us and board other boats and do safety checks, and they were great. And I thought, I'll take the test, but it's civil service in Massachusetts. So, I did okay, and I actually got called to go sign the list in Boston, which means you may get an interview. But, above me was, regardless of your score, there was 30 or 40 disabled veterans. So it's kind of like, which, I can't really have a beef with, but it's like, the process makes it really hard, where if the department has people that they think are a really good fit and they really want, that testing process doesn't even give them an opportunity to give that person an interview, because they have all the criteria of civil service that they have to go through. But more recently, I have a friend who's pretty high up in them now, and I've thought about it because they said they're really, the big thing with Massachusetts is all the wardens wanted guys that were good for law enforcement that could learn the environmental stuff. The state's point of view is they want a biologist that they can somehow turn into a cop. So when the game warden test in Mass is heavy on biology and environmental stuff, and like a lot of stuff and they don't give you a study guide. So it's kind of like they might ask you something about a mountain lion, which they did on the test I took, and we're all in the testing room looking around like, mountain lions, they told us they don't exist in Massachusetts.
Right.
And they're asking us about the hunting habits of a mountain lion. I'm like, only somebody who studied this in school would know anything about a big cat. So that, I think they're going the other way now, where they're trying to get cops they're taking a lot of like veteran cops, maybe guys that like kind of always had that boyhood dream of being a game warden. They're like, well, why not have like a little warden school they can go through, and they already know how to talk with people and how to enforce laws. So I think that's a better route than taking someone who's kind of I don't want to talk down to any profession, but like someone who's maybe doesn't have the skill set to do it, thinks it's a cool idea, but is more of a academic person,
Well, the academic people usually can't do it. Steve Gold and John Borkovich can do it. Everyone has a gift in life. Everyone has a forte.
Sure.
Chasing people in the rain along a river, or driving at night with your lights out. Some of the people that are strictly educated people probably not made for that. Not saying you and I are stupid. We're educated, but we have more than just the schooling, Steve.
John, you're such a cowboy. I love the fact that you added driving with your lights off at nighttime as a prerequisite for being a game warden.
One of the things, we had sneak lights on our vehicles and everything in the day. We had a little military light that would only shine down the road. We did a lot of fun things. But
yeah, that's really cool. Well, it's really cool that you work for a state that really embraces their warden service,
Well, you said earlier in the interview, Steve, that your game wardens in Massachusetts, they're strictly game wardens, and your law enforcement officers can't do a whole lot of the natural resource laws.
Yeah, the wardens can actually enforce like any law under the sun. The cops are inhibited with game laws.
Okay, so that's in Michigan. It's very similar, except general police officers, general law enforcement officers can enforce all the game laws also, because they're almost all misdemeanors. So it's a statute in Michigan. So it's kind of fun being a road cop now. I still kind of look for the poaching cases.
I forgot all about that. Now you're like a standard cop, which I think is which is awesome. You did 27 years as a warden, and now you're shagging calls for a city or a town, right?
Yeah, well, it's kind of fun too, and I've had some great calls. Obviously, some of the very intense calls I didn't even get to tell you about, just being a regular road cop. But yeah, it's kind of fun doing both.
That's what a contrast. Which do you obviously you must prefer the game warden stuff.
Yeah, I don't know how to say it. There's so much freedom. Freedom to drive without your lights. Freedom to wear a camouflage jacket up in the tree with the binoculars. Freedom. uh, The crazy thing is, Steve, I worked in an era, and it's still partially like this. I worked when you could work as much as you wanted to. You could work round the clock when it's good weather and there's people out. Other days when it's nasty and raining and snowing, you work 3 hours. I worked in an era where you could adjust your schedule, the
Yeah.
freedom to pick and choose. No one told me you have to turn west and work. No one told me you can only go to this. I basically freelanced every single day, and
Beautiful.
that's the draw. Oh, the beautiful. I'd sit on the hood of my patrol car at night, on a moonlight night, and just sit there and like, I can't believe I'm getting paid for this. It was my decision to sit there and look for poachers. I get out in a boat and I'm riding the boat. I can't believe I'm getting paid for this. So yeah, the freedom to adjust my hours and adjust my patrol areas is why it's a better job.
Yeah, and they actually embrace that in Massachusetts too. Is kind of the mindset of like everybody knows when the warden's home type of thing because the truck's in the driveway. So they
Oh
let
yeah.
those. I think from what they tell me, they can kind of just maybe even shoot their sergeant a text or something and be like, "Hey, I'm working these hours today, or I'm working." They just flex their hours whenever they want because they're the ones out there. They're the ones picking up people's patterns. They know when to do it,
Yep.
when not to, and like you said, why would you go out unless you had information on a night where people won't be fishing or hunting?
Right. And again, the resource dictates that also. When the salmon are spawning in the creeks, that's when you work the salmon spawning in the creeks. Um, so the resource will dictate the right days. Then you have to have enough willpower to work extra hours on those days. One time I worked 48 straight hours and I didn't get fired. It was so fun. I had 12 venison sandwiches. I had a case of water. I had a whole thing of Hershey bars. And Steve, I went on a search and destroy mission. It was so much fun. You asked me which job's more fun. It's fun to be on your own. And I ended up with like 5 deer. It was a sedan back then, a Caprice. But I had 5 deer on the trunk. I had 12 guns in the back seat. And I was so wound up I couldn't go home. That's what's fun about working. They used to call it selling popcorn when the circus is in town. You can't sell popcorn if the circus isn't here, right? So
Right.
when it's here, that's when you spend your hours afield, and it was fun.
That's awesome, man. I love it. John, can you tell us about a heartwarming situation in your career?
That compassion I talked about, I really do like a lot of people, a lot of poor people, hardships in life. I try to, make myself available to them. I try to help them every way I can. One year I remember, Steve, opening day of deer season. And it had just gotten light out, and I'm driving down the dirt road and see a hunter on the side of the road, and I pull up. He's covered with blood, head to toe, hands, face, blood all over his clothing. I say, "Hey, buddy, how you doing?" I knew him. Good, good, John. I said, did you get a deer? No. It's open day of deer season, blood all over on you.
I just got a
I
paper
said,
cut.
yeah. I said, oh, did you cut yourself or something? Yeah, yeah. Where at, buddy? Right here. Over here. Um, he's looking for his cut, and there's no cut. And I said, "Oh, okay, pal. I've known you and your family a long time. I like you guys. You didn't cut yourself. You shot a deer. Yeah, I shot two of them already. Shot one before light and shot one a little while ago. I don't have a license. Where's the deer? I've already taken him to my home. And he's out trying to get another one. The kid, he was like a 20-year-old kid. The kid was from a poor family. The kid was getting deer to feed his family.
Yeah.
The heartwarming part comes in the fact that I'd known the family for years. I talked to them, and I knew their station in life wasn't like where you and I would be at.
They're struggling.
They were struggling bad. So the heartwarming part of, again, having our discretion and being able to make the right call was I didn't arrest him. I literally made him buy a hunting license. 2, because he killed 2 deer.
That's great.
But we go to the store. I gave him one minor ticket for not putting his tag on the deer. Something real simple. And to let him keep both deer. I'm supposed to take both deer. I'm supposed to take his gun. I'm supposed to give him 5 days in jail for each deer. He's supposed to lose his hunting license for the next 3 years. But ask myself, why would I do that to a family who's already poor? Gonna make them pay thousands? It's supposed to be about $1,500 each deer on top of everything else. Oh. Why would I do that to a family that has no money to start with?
Yeah, it's got that discretion.
It's that discretion where I felt good about treating him that way. I'm not saying it's okay to do. There's still reason to have laws, Steve, but in that case, I felt real good about treating him that way.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you can't help but your mind would just go back and be like, 150 years ago, this is what they would be doing to sustain themselves. They don't, they would be trying to get some game to eat, and like you said, the resources need to be managed. We need to be good stewards of all that we control, and it's important. But to see that you had that compassion is really great, because that would have devastated that family, and he was probably the one feeding everybody. He
was. So I think I made the right call. I don't know if you could do that. I keep saying used to be in the old days and all. Maybe some of the officers don't have that same discretion nowadays, which is sad.
Yeah. I hate it when agencies of any law enforcement genre get caught up with numbers and with quotas. They won't say quotas because that's illegal, but like you're gonna have a supervisor tap you on the shoulder and be like, with numbers from last month could be better. Why don't you bump it up? I'm not telling you have to, but that type of thing. Or some agencies will just tell you have to.
You know what happens with that, Steve? I'm glad you brought that up. What happens with that is, remember the least common denominator theory in math? All officers do in that case is lower their standards to get more numbers. I see it all the time. If you need tickets this day, if you don't find someone with a felony warrant going 100 miles an hour in a 40-mile-an-hour zone, you're going to start looking for someone going 45 in a 40-mile-an-hour zone. You're going to lower that denominator down. You're going to start, if you're all about numbers, if your sergeant or lieutenant's pushing you so hard, what I see officers do is lower their standards and lower that denominator so low, all you're doing is making enemies.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not saying there isn't a reason for, I don't want to get misunderstood. If you have speeding complaints in town and the numbers are low, okay, yeah, we need to do some more enforcement, something like that. But just for the sake of having them, or just for the sake of doing it, like you said, we work traffic grants in Mass. You get money from the state to do an enforcement period, and I have to hand it to the state. They've actually backed down on. They used to strongly suggest a certain amount of stops per hour. Yeah, and you got to lower your standards because you're not going to get them. And then if you don't get enough production, your town won't get the grant again, and then you won't get the nice equipment and stuff that the state will buy you. Right. Which, it all starts to feel kind of yucky, when you're like, I have a way I operate. I have discretion that I've kind of carved out over the 16 years I've been in law enforcement, and I'm comfortable with it and I can sleep at night. Yeah. When you take a shift for overtime and they're like, time to hammer the motoring public, it doesn't feel great.
Not when you lower your standards.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Absolutely. John, real popular question here I ask all the guests is advice to new police officers. What would you tell someone getting into the field now?
I think we already talked about this several times since we started this, Steve. I think advice would be to have compassion for other people. And nowadays, the defund police movements and the need for police retraining, police have kind of gotten a black eye in a lot of areas.
Absolutely.
If police, right from the get-go on the job, if you had more compassion for the public, you may still give them a ticket, but if you have some compassion or sympathy or empathy for their situation, that goes a long way. So the best advice is to put yourself in the public's position when you make a stop, and how would they want to be treated? How would they want to be respected? What kind of dignity would I want to feel if I was being stopped? So
Sure.
to understand how to treat people is very, very important. Then the flip side of that is take the job in law enforcement to have a fire or a burning desire or a passion to do a good job. Don't take it just because the benefits are good or I want to be a jerk and write tickets. So if you do those two things, if you have compassion for the public and treat them well, at the same time, be a crazy man cowboy, like you said a bit ago, just a crazy that I'm going out and some guys go like to find all the drunk drivers they can find to get on a mission. That's great. You're saving lives. Some guys feel that passion to do the police job, Steve. If young officers were like guided this way, show this goodwill to everybody you run into, but then have a passion to go find big cases. So kind of twofold advice there for every new officer.
Yeah, I love it. Words of wisdom. Thank you for that, John. I want to talk about these books you've written, good sir, because I have a copy of both these books, and I've added this one, Nature 911, The Path, to our homeschool collection, because my daughter has been asking me for years now, because I have a stack of books, can I read one of your guest books? And the answer is usually, you may not, because they're police war stories, and I just don't want you reading it. She's 14, but she's a tenacious reader. She loves nature. We have animals that we take care of. So this one has gotten the green light from John. Kid-friendly, great stories, got stuff about even when you were younger. Awesome book, Nature 911, The Path. But the more in the vein of law enforcement or war stories or kind of your career is Wildlife 911 on Patrol through the eyes of John Borkovich. We just heard a taste of how crazy your career was and how fun. This book is no different and elaborates much better on it. So what was the impetus to write the books?
I think, Steve, while I was having so much fun, while I was just working too many hours and enjoying every day, I started seeing these crazy or impactful cases. You could not write a book like this if you were saying, well, I gave a guy a ticket because he had his hunting license in his truck. Who wants to read that?
Right.
You can't write a book about, well, this guy was duck hunting and the shooting hours ended at 6:21. It was 6:22. I gave him a ticket. No one wants to read that. So when I started thinking about writing a book, is I had hundreds of good cases, what I call them impactful cases. I started thinking, well, how come I'm making all these kind of cases? There's two reasons for it. I wasn't tied up on the minor cases, and I had the passion to protect the outdoors and other people. So as these cases are building up, I decided, yeah, let's write a book. And now I get to encourage other people to just protect nature, conserve our outdoor world, be good stewards of the land. You mentioned earlier about being good stewards. I get to purport that attitude and to try to get people to think more about being responsible. And through my crazy stories, I'm able to breach libraries and schools where I can get this word out.
It's very cool, man. And know what I love about John, everybody, is I asked him, can I put your Instagram up there? He goes, I don't have one. I go, well, you do, because I found it. And he goes, all right, put it up. So someone is...
truck. Yeah, that's in the hood of my truck and get on the rain. I don't know much about the computer stuff.
Somebody's got your back in your family with the technology, because you also almost have about 300 followers on there. So show John some love. Go to Wildlife 911 on Patrol on Instagram. Give him a follow. And also, where can they get the book, John?
We do a lot on Facebook, at thousands of people on my Facebook, just under John Borkovich. As far as the book, I do have a website. It's just Wildlife 911 on Patrol.
Okay, and I'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah, just Wildlife 911 on Patrol, and there's all sorts of. If someone wants to buy a book, just push a button and I mail it out the next day.
Awesome, I love it, brother. Absolute honor to have you on, man. I'm so glad that we figured out the technical difficulties and we got you on here. I'm excited about this episode. I'm gonna put it up right away. I'm gonna put it up on Wednesday. Get it out there.
Oh, look. You do a great job, by the way. So.
Heck yeah. Oh, thanks, brother. I appreciate that. But like I said, honor to have you. I'm gonna do the outro to the show. Links to John will be in the show notes, so you can check him out, follow him. Can you hang out for just a couple minutes? I know I had you over an hour here.
You betcha. Then we'll make plans to do it again here.
All right, man. Sounds good. The great John Borkovich, ladies and gentlemen. Crazy stories. Love a game warden. What a cool job. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Thank you for coming back if you're a repeat listener. And this is the time in the show where I thank the Patreon sergeants, and who I'm talking about is the great Andy Biggs, Greg Gadboy, Adam Mihal, the great Chris June, Gary Steiner, Jake Pinedo, John Shoemaker, the great Lauren Stimson, the handsome Lane Campbell, Seth Wright, James Rose, the great Tony Fahey, Ben Peters, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes host of Cops in the News, Braden Walker, Jason Lau, the great Mike Wynn, everybody, Sasha McNabb, no other than Sasha, the great Scott Minkler, Tammy Walsh, holding it down in dispatch, Sean Clifford, everybody, the great Dennis Carrasquillo, Iceman from Motor Cop Chronicles, check out his podcast, the great George Tessier, see you in church, brother, Nick Noose, everybody, Scott Young, the great Tom Connell, retired ATF Wayne M. Miller, check out his book, Burley Boards, owned by Dan Carlson, check him out, amazing woodwork, Doug and Kelly Newman, love you guys, see you at church, Joe DeFries, everybody, the great Joe DeFries, Dave Ellman, Elliot Sykes, the great Richard Tolles, keep on trucking, brother, be safe out there, Christian, Jace Crow, the great Brad Thompson, Kyle Roberts, Zach Haney, the great Nancy Hammond, Nancy, how are ya? And Clark Lockuff. Thank you, guys. Thank you for continuing to support the show. I say it all the time, but at the end of the month, when the bills are due and I got to pay the mortgage and all the utilities, and then I got to pay for podcast stuff, there are the funds from Patreon to help me do that. So it truly keeps the lights on here, keeps us going, and I love you for it. So without further ado, it sounds like I'm starting another podcast. What I meant to say is I'll see you guys next week.